When I had my first kid, I was probably lulled into a bit of a false sense of security. He was potty trained by the time he was 1, never had a tantrum. His nap times and bedtimes and wake up times could be like set by the second. His newborn days were a bit tricky, but I was pretty confident in my toddler motherhood. Then I had my second kid, and then I had my third kid. And let's just say it was a very humbling experience. Home educating when you've got older siblings around, especially if you're someone who likes to have some times of sitting down, kind of structured activities, and having a toddler on the loose brings its own set of delights and difficulties. If you have a toddler at home and you're a home educator, then I probably don't have to explain any of this. If you know, you know. But if you're someone who, like me, it came as a bit of a shock because your first experience with toddlerhood was so calm. There are kind of 3 things that make home educating when you've got a toddler extra tricky. Number 1 is the unpredictability. Or even if you've got a kid that sleeps really well through the night, that doesn't necessarily stay when you have a toddler. They've got the transition to the big kid bed. They've got teeth problems that might make them wake up at night. They've got growth spurts that make them wake up. The time that they wake up in the morning can change. They're dropping naps, they're adding naps, they're napping at strange times. That makes life unpredictable. The things that they like and enjoy doing, one day they could be so focused on putting little bits of cereal onto spaghetti or whatever it is that you've got set up for them, and the next day that could just be like the worst torture ever that you inflicted on them. You might have a kid that just wants to snuggle all morning, and then the next day when you plan some amazing activity for your older kids, just wants to torment and pull and bite and hit, and all of these they're just normal, natural things for toddlers. But trying to manage that whilst trying to home educate your other kids, it can be difficult. The second thing I think is the kind of trail of destruction and chaos that they can leave behind them. So it's not just that they are preventing you from maybe being able to do the jobs that you want to do, they're also adding in a billion more jobs on top of that. There's the accidents that you need to clean up. There's the fact that they've suddenly learned to climb on top of something and get out the resources that you thought were out of their reach and scatter them everywhere. There's the sibling tormenting that they do and the frustration that they cause there that you have to solve when someone else is crying because they've ripped their work or they've drawn on something. There's just a lot of that extra work. Don't get me started on the cleaning up after lunches and snacks. Like, that is one of my least favorite things about parenting. So there's this just trail of destruction that adds an extra layer of time consuming cleaning up and problem solving on it. The third thing I find a little bit of a struggle is the fact that with my first kid, our whole day was structured around his needs, around his naps, his routines. We could go to lots of play groups that were aimed exactly for his age. And now we're at our third and we're trying to balance all the needs of everybody, not to mention being a toddler in the COVID years. It feels sometimes like they've kind of got the short straw a little bit, like you're almost just trying to keep them busy so you can focus on the others. And that's not what I want it to be, obviously. So there's that kind of guilt is maybe too strong of a word, but that concern as well. So you've got the unpredictability, the trail of chaos that they leave behind them, and then the desire to do things that are really going to focus on them and help build them up as well. If you skipped ahead to get to the top 10 tips to solve the toddler conundrum, then I'm really sorry, but you're going to be disappointed. I don't have tips. I have some thoughts that I'm trying to remind myself of, and then if you do stick around to the end, I can show you just practically some of the things that I'm doing with my toddler right now. But the first thing I was thinking about is I just have to make sure that I reimagine or reframe what success is. We can sometimes think that a lesson is, and I'm using that word loosely, but you know what I mean by a lesson, when you're teaching your kids a particular activity, and we have this view of what a lesson should look like, mainly because most of us have been at school and because everything kind of is thrown at us, that success when you're teaching someone is a quiet, still kid in front of you. And when I was a teacher, I'd be like, right, eyes on me, hands still, bottoms on floor. Like, you would just have this kind of picture of what it meant that a lesson was successful, and often it was to do with a certain standard or type of behaviour you wanted. But actually a lesson is successful if your kids learn something. So it might look messy and chaotic to everyone else. It might mean that the toddler is crawling over your shoulder or pulling up part tissue paper at the side of you. It might mean that you're stopping and having to solve different issues during it, and that is still success. If you are learning something, even if it's not what you intended and set out to learn, then that is a success. So I think first of all we need to throw away our expectations of quiet, calm, still, very well managed lessons, and realize that what looks like chaos can actually be fantastic learning and bonding and so on. So it's not going to look like what we expect, and that's okay. One of the things I didn't understand when I started home educating was the seasonal aspect of it. And I don't just mean the seasons, the actual seasons, even though they're important. I just mean that life obviously has lots of different seasons and lots of different things that you go through, and that has a big impact on home education, and that's a good thing because we want home education to reflect real life more. I used to think consistency was the goal, and having a toddler around makes it very difficult to keep that consistency. But now that I've recognized that there are seasons and that not everything has to be completed at a certain time or in a certain way, that's freed me up a lot. Right now I have a season of a very busy toddler, and we embrace that, the fact that we try and get out a lot more, that we just keep our structured sessions quite short, and that's okay because we don't have to learn everything right now. We can learn different things that are more suited to this season, and then when he's a bit older we can lean in a bit more to quieter structured learning if we want to. So I think we definitely need to embrace that there are seasons. There are seasons of moving house, there are seasons of illness, there are seasons of self-isolation, and it's okay for our home ed to change to reflect that. And toddlerhood is just a season, and so it's okay to just lean into that a little bit and forego some of the things that we'd planned in order to embrace that season. The third thing that I'm trying to learn is to be much more opportunistic as a home educator, to just take the opportunities that are in front of me and almost be a bit more reactive than planning things. There are times when we can be opportunistic. If we know our kid is going to be napping, then we can use that maybe to teach our other kids, or if they go to bed a bit earlier or if they get up later, we can try and be opportunistic then. But I think it's just a matter of having, just to make it sound so easy, I think it's a matter of having in your head or written down somewhere the type of things that you're wanting to cover or talk to with your older children, and jumping on the opportunities when they're there. So if your toddler is in a very snuggly, calm mood, then take that opportunity for doing a read aloud. If they want to be busy and active, but you know that Nana's visiting on Friday and he will just love to go out for a walk with her, then spend the day being busy and active, and then on Friday do some other different things with the other kids. If you can go to nursery and send your kid there, then take that opportunity. There's nothing wrong with doing that as well. So it's a matter of being ready to pounce on things, which we're not always ready to do, but I'm trying to train myself to be a bit more like that as well. The last thing that I think would be helpful to have as our mindset if we're trying to home educate while there's a toddler around is to be as prepared as we can, but listen to this bit, with the resources and the context that we're in. We can't expect to have everything sorted and prepared, and I think that's unrealistic, but we can maybe think about how we can possibly be prepared. And in some of those quieter moments, some of the days where it's a little bit easier to take those opportunities to do that prep. So it could look like actually physically prepping some things to do with your toddler, and help keep them focused so you can maybe concentrate with some of the others. It could be about thinking ahead of asking other people to come and take your toddler out for a walk, or take the other children out for something, along to an activity so you can spend time with your toddler. It could be taking that time to prepare to look around different nurseries and figure that out and take advantage of the free childcare that we have in the UK. So it's about being as prepared as you can be, but not feeling guilty for what we don't manage to prepare. So I am going to show you some of the things that I've started doing this year. I spent a little bit of time when I was feeling energetic, when my kids have been looked after by their grandparents, and I prepared a little bit. And so I'll show you what I planned for. I'm calling it Tot School, which isn't my phrase. I've nicked that from someone else. You okay? You're doing a great job. So I'm going to show you some of the things that I prepared so that I can try and tackle the toddler conundrum. So I've just picked a shape, a colour and an animal for us to focus on. When I want my toddler to just settle down a little bit, I'll offer him these activities. So we've got a colour book that we talked through, and then he's made a collage out of blue things. So that was kind of one session. Then the next day, we haven't done this one yet, but I'm going to get a sibling to hide these around the room, and he can hunt for them and stick them down, and that'll keep him occupied for a little bit, and then we can talk about it too. This shape that we're doing is a triangle, so just printed off a simple triangle shape, and he's practicing putting the stickers on. If you want to see this in a bit more detail, I will have another video showing me prepping for the next time. But here we've got just a simple pizza activity, and he's just going to point out the shapes so we can cut them out. So some of these are things that we can do together, and some of the things that he can do on his own sat next to me while I'm working with the other kids. So we've got elephant to decorate, and then a really simple craft that I can show him, and then he can do it whichever way he wants. Lots of glue and paint. This will be a bit of a messy activity to do to end the little topic with. Can you say bye?
Bye.